You don't need to raise your voice to destroy a man, you just need the right kind of silence. That's what it felt like when Claire Matthews looked across the conference table and said, "We're moving in a younger direction, Alan. We think it's time for new energy. My name is Alan Kirk. I'm 61 years old, and until that morning I was the director of operations at Allenton Steelworks, a family-owned metal fabrication company in Columbus, Ohio. I'd spent 22 years at Allenton, longer than Claire Matthews, our newly appointed CEO, had been alive. I didn't argue. I didn't protest. I didn't beg. I just stood up, buttoned my jacket, and walked out of the room. There were people I'd trained from their first welding shift, folks whose kids I'd written college recommendation letters for. All of them suddenly avoided eye contact as I packed my things into a modest brown box. I walked past the machines I'd helped install the inventory systems I'd designed, and the break room fridge I personally restocked during the pandemic because no one else would. And I kept walking right out the front doors and into a cold March morning. Claire had been brought in by the board 6 months earlier, fresh off an MBA, and a stint at a tech firm where she claimed she'd optimized culture through agile disruption, whatever that meant. From day one, she'd eyed me like I was a fossil. I was never flashy, never played office politics. I showed up early, stayed late, solved problems, and made sure the place ran. What Claire didn't realize, or didn't care to, is that Allenton wasn't just machines and ledgers. It was muscle memory, trust, institutional knowledge. And she'd just thrown all of that out for the promise of data dashboards and efficiency modeling. But there was one thing Claire hadn't checked before walking me out my contract. You see, when Mr. Allenton Sr. was still running the place before he passed, he'd made sure that I had a termination without cause clause. If they fired me without documented performance issues, I'd get 18 months of severance, full salary, benefits, no strings, because Mr. Allenton understood something Claire didn't value doesn't always show up on a spreadsheet. That afternoon, I called Lana Reeve, an old friend and employment lawyer. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but I kept her number saved for a reason. By 4 Hazucho p.m., she had reviewed my contract and said 2 words I'll never forget. They messed up. Lana didn't waste time. She had the kind of voice that made opposing counsel pause and reread their own paperwork before speaking. After she reviewed the contract, she said, "Alan, this isn't just solid, it's ironclad." We sat at her downtown office, sipping coffee, while she flipped through the old agreement Mr. Allenton Sr. and I had signed 10 years ago. Clause 14, she said, tapping the document. Termination without cause triggers 18 months of full compensation plus an extension of benefits for 12 months. No ambiguity, no wiggle room. And if they fight it, I asked. Lana shrugged. Then we go public with a wrongful termination case. Trust me, no board wants headlines about age discrimination. Not when they replaced a 61-year-old operations director with a 28-year-old consultant with no factory experience. Claire hadn't even sent a formal HR letter, just the vague, sanitized restructuring line and an escort out the door. They thought I'd disappear. Instead, I filed a severance claim that hit their inbox before they'd even reset my email password. And that was only step 1. The next morning, I got a call from Mark Deaton, former head of Allenton's machine diagnostics team. I'd trained Mark when he was 20. Now he had 3 kids and a mortgage. "Alan, they let me go today," he said quietly. "Said they're outsourcing the diagnostics to some AI platform that flags system failures before they happen. Told me I'm no longer cost-effective." I sighed, already seeing the pattern. "They're not just cutting legacy roles," I said. "They're erasing the people who remember how things really work." "You think they'll stop with me?" he asked. "No," I said flatly. "They won't stop until the whole floor runs on interns and spreadsheets." By the end of that week, 5 more employees over 50 had been restructured. All of them longtime veterans. All of them essential in ways that no software would ever replicate. So I made a list. Mark Deaton, diagnostics. Cheryl Hammond, inventory lead. Ron Ellis, welding lead. Judy Hernandez, safety compliance. Tim Bird, logistics coordinator. Each of them loyal, each of them undervalued, each of them available. Alan Lana said when I told her, "You're not just fighting back, are you? You're planning to build something." I didn't answer her directly. I just looked at the list again. Then I called Dale Bennett, an old colleague who ran Tri-Core Fabrication, a small but growing operation on the edge of the city. "Still looking to expand custom steel orders?" I asked. "Depends," he said. "You got something in mind?" "Not something," I said. "Someone. A team." Dale Bennett was skeptical at first. Can't blame him. When a guy walks into your office with a notebook and 5 names pitching a new division in the middle of a market downturn, most people would show him the door. But Dale wasn't most people. He ran Tri-Core Fabrication, a lean, sharp outfit known for punching above its weight. Dale had once been passed over for a VP role at Allenton back in the day. Now he ran his own company, and he remembered everything. "So let me get this straight," Dale said, leaning back in his chair. "You're offering me 5 of the best operations people in the region, people you trained, and you're just giving them to me." "Not giving," I corrected. "Building with you. A new division. Custom jobs. Small batch high-margin steel components. The kind Allenton abandoned when they chased volume over value." He tapped his pen on the desk, then looked me straight in the eye. "Alan, you're not doing this just to win. You're doing this to prove something. I already proved it," I said. "For 22 years. Now I'm going to remind them." Dale nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "I'll back you. But we keep it clean. No poaching active clients. No illegal play." "We don't have to," I said. "The clients will come on their own once Claire starts running the place like a business school case study." Within 3 weeks, we had a plan on paper and boots on the floor. Tri-Core Precision was born, housed in a retrofitted facility Dale owned but hadn't used in years. Dusty, cramped, but structurally sound. It just needed life. Mark brought in diagnostic equipment from a shuttered site he'd managed. Cheryl rebuilt the entire inventory system by hand in 2 days. Judy rewrote the safety manual before the paint was dry on the exit signs. We weren't trying to copy Allenton, we were building something smarter, tighter, more human. And the timing couldn't have been better. That same week, Ron Ellis called me. "Alan, you got a minute for you always." "Allenton just lost the Midland Utilities contract," he said, voice low. "They missed a deadline. Claire blamed supply chain issues, but that's bull. It was poor scheduling. No one even caught the order delay until the customer called me at home asking where their steel frames were. Ron had retired after his layoff, but clearly the clients hadn't forgotten who really got things done." "You thinking of coming back?" I asked. "Only if it's not back there," he said. "If you're building something, I want in." I smiled. That made 6. The news from Allenton grew worse by the week. Vendors were complaining about late payments. A local newspaper ran a quiet story about a former employee filing a discrimination complaint, age-related. And then came the call that confirmed everything I already suspected. It was from Mr. Kenneth Porter, VP of Procurement at Briley Infrastructure, a $7 million client I'd managed for 10 years. "Alan," he said, "we're seeing some real changes over there. New contacts every month. Quotes are wrong. Lead times are off. What's going on?" "Let's just say they replaced people with systems," I said, and didn't give either the proper instructions. He paused. "You landed somewhere else yet?" "I'm starting something new," I told him. "We're not ready for volume yet, but if you've got custom components, small run orders, we'll take care of you like we always did." He chuckled. That's what I needed to hear. By the end of the month, Tri-Core Precision had its first 3 contracts lined up. Nothing massive. but enough to show we were real. Enough to remind the industry that reliability still mattered, and that the people who'd built Allenton Steel weren't gone. We were just building somewhere else. The first real sign that Allenton Steel was in trouble didn't come from a news article or an angry vendor. It came from within. I was grabbing coffee at the same diner where I'd met Dale weeks earlier when Ellen Rios, Allenton's longtime HR assistant, slid into the booth across from me. She looked around before speaking. "Claire's in over her head," she said without greeting. "You probably already know that." I nodded slowly. "What's going on?" "She's cutting corners. Pushed out 4 supervisors last week. Half the floor team's threatening to walk. There was an OSHA inspection after someone got burned on a miscalibrated line. That hit hard. I'd helped design those safety protocols. Built them to prevent exactly that. Why are you telling me this, Ellen? Because you always treated us like people. And because I know you're starting something. People are talking. I kept my face neutral, but my heart beat faster. We're small right now, I said. Bare bones. People don't need flash, she said. They need stability. If you have room for a payroll manager who doesn't need hand-holding, I'm ready. I reached into my coat and slid her a card. We could use someone who knows where every screw in the old place was buried. She took the card, stood up, and left without another word. That night, I updated the hiring roster Ellen Rios confirmed. 2 days later, I got a call from a number I hadn't saved. "Alan Granger," the voice asked. "Speaking. This is Raymond Doyle from the Ironworks Review. We've been hearing chatter about a group of former Allenton managers starting a new firm. I wanted to see if you'd like to go on record." I nearly laughed. "Not interested in press right now, Raymond. We're just focused on building." "That's what makes it interesting," he replied, "because your former employer's quarterly reports show a 19% drop in output and a 32% spike in late shipments. We ran some public supplier records. Half of their preferred vendors haven't been paid in 90 days. I didn't respond. "If you change your mind," he said, "you've got a great story. Just remember, it's not revenge if you build something better." The very next morning, Dale stormed into the shop office waving a manila folder. "You need to see this." It was a cease and desist letter from Allenton Steel's legal department. They're claiming we've been soliciting their clients and breaching your non-compete. I flipped through the letter. Baseless. I hadn't contacted a single Allenton client first. They'd come to me. "They're bluffing," I said. "There's no clause that prevents me from selling to whoever wants to buy. I've got our legal on standby anyway," Dale said. "But this means they're scared." And that meant we were making progress. The final straw came a week later. A former Allenton line supervisor, Roger Vega, one of the best floor guys I'd ever trained, showed up at our facility after walking out mid-shift. "Claire replaced the maintenance crew with some tech vendor she found online," he said. "No diagnostics, no calibration, just off-the-shelf service packages. Our flagship punch press broke down yesterday. Cost them $150,000 in delays already." She tried to blame me. He looked exhausted, angry. "You got a spot for someone who still believes in running machines like their family." I shook his hand. Always. By the end of the month, Tri-Core Precision had grown to 18 employees, nearly all of them former Allenton vets, and every one of them hand-picked. We didn't have flashy offices or glass-walled boardrooms, but we had something better. We had trust. And just like that, the company Claire had tried to erase me from was starting to fall apart one quiet resignation, one late shipment, one careless decision at a time. And I wasn't doing a thing to stop it. I didn't have to. Allenton was collapsing under the weight of its own arrogance. It was a rainy Thursday morning when my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in months. Claire Bellamy. For a moment, I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. Then I picked up. "Alan," Her voice was tight-clipped. "We need to talk." "Funny," I said. "Didn't think you needed old men like me." There was a pause, the kind where pride swallows its words. "Can you meet today?" "That depends. Is this about the cease and desist? Because my lawyer already sent your legal team a response. It's not about that. It's bigger." I agreed to meet at a downtown cafe neutral ground. She arrived 10 minutes late, designer coat, soaked at the shoulders, eyes hidden behind oversized sunglasses. "Thanks for coming," she said, without meeting my gaze. "Didn't come for you. Came to hear the panic in your voice." She sighed and pulled a folder from her bag. Charts, graphs, numbers in red. "Allenton's in trouble," she admitted. 4 major contracts at risk. Our top vendors won't extend terms. Morale's tanking. And what do you expect me to do about it? Help us. Help me. Come back as a consultant. Get us through this storm and I'll make it worth your while." I stared at her. "Claire, the storm is of your own making. You gutted the company's core, replaced experience with buzzwords." She leaned forward. "I didn't understand what you brought to the table. I thought, numbers, systems, analytics, that they could replace judgment. They can't. Not when you're dealing with machines, unions, suppliers, deadlines. Not when your floor crew feels like they've been thrown away." She flinched just barely. "This isn't personal, Alan. It is to the 40 people you shoved out the door. It is to Roger, to Ellen, to the men who worked double shifts for your father." I stood up, sliding the folder back across the table. "You don't need a consultant. You need a conscience." As I walked out into the drizzle, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clarity. She hadn't learned. She was just drowning and trying to use my name as a life raft. That night I got a call from Charles Bellamy. She told me you turned her down. I did. "You're not wrong," he said, "but you might be the only one who can save the company. That company doesn't exist anymore, Charles. The one we built, it died the day she decided knowledge didn't matter. Then maybe it's time to build something new. I already am." Another pause. "Alan, if there's ever a way to fix this, I trust you'll find it." I hung up, staring out my window at the rain-slick street. Claire's world was collapsing, and she was reaching for a man she'd deemed obsolete to stop it. But some bridges don't burn. They disintegrate. And I wasn't crossing back. 2 weeks after Claire's desperate offer, I got a text from Roger Feldman, our old maintenance supervisor. He was still at Allenton for now. 3 big clients walking. QC backlog. They're blaming software. It's not the software. Then a second message. Thought you'd want to know Claire's looking to sell off the tool calibration wing. The same one you built from scratch. That was the final crack. That department had kept Allenton competitive for years, custom precision recalibration that no offshore supplier could match. The heart of what we did. The next morning, I met Brandon Lee, the lead buyer at Silver Point Logistics, one of Allenton's largest long-term clients. We sat at a modest conference table in the temporary offices of Atlas Systems, the small industrial startup I'd partnered into just months ago. "You're sure you can handle our volume?" Brandon asked, skeptical. "Not today," I admitted. "But give us 60 days. We'll mirror your specs, train up the old crew, and we'll beat Allenton's pricing and match their turnaround, with better quality." He leaned back. "Claire's been pushing these streamlined packages that don't fit our needs. It's like she's solving a spreadsheet, not a supply problem." "Because she is," I said. "She's cutting until there's nothing left to cut." Brandon looked me square in the eyes. "You really think Atlas is ready to compete?" "Brandon," I said, folding my hands. We don't need to compete with Allenton's current team. They fired their best people. We are the team. He signed the preliminary agreement on the spot. By the end of that week, 2 more former Allenton clients had reached out. Quiet inquiries at first, concerns over missed orders, delays, rising costs. We didn't poach. We received. Roger finally quit, too. Joined us part-time to help set up the new maintenance line. He looked 20 pounds lighter the first time I saw him back in coveralls. "I feel like I got out of a bad marriage," he said, grinning. "Only this time the rebound's not half bad." Then came the call from Claire's legal team. A polite but pointed reminder about non-compete clauses, intellectual property supplier agreements. My lawyer responded with one sentence: "Mr. Granger has not breached any clause. He's simply chosen not to disappear." The next day, I got a certified letter from Charles Bellamy. It wasn't a threat. It was a request. If there's any part of Allenton worth saving, it's going to need you. And if it's beyond saving, at least give the workers somewhere to land. I folded the letter and placed it in my drawer. We weren't done, but we weren't looking back either. It started with a delay, then 2. Then a missed order that cost Allenton a $1.3 million contract with Krell Fabrication, one of their oldest partners. The industry grapevine lit up. Everyone suddenly knew what we'd seen coming months earlier. Claire had gutted the heart of the company. Roger called me one night from a bar on the south end of the city. They tried to blame the diagnostics failure on the new AI vendor, he said. "Turns out it flagged the problem 2 days too late because Claire didn't approve the equipment update schedule you set years ago." "And the backup generator maintenance?" I asked. He snorted. "Cut entirely. Plant shut down for 3 hours yesterday when the grid went out. 3 trucks turned around. 2 clients canceled orders. The writing was on the wall." Claire had gambled that systems and software could replace skilled people, and now Allenton was hemorrhaging cash. Then the board finally stepped in. Charles Bellamy called me personally. "We had an emergency meeting," he said, his voice strained. "Claire's been put on administrative leave. We're conducting a full audit. I didn't say I told you so because I didn't need to. Instead, I asked, what's left some assets? Not much of a leadership team. A skeleton staff hanging on by their fingernails. Morale's gone. Clients are skittish. And your old departments, most of them are completely hollow." He paused. "But we have one option we're considering. And it's a long shot." "What is it, Merge? Fold what's left of Allenton into Atlas. Make it official. We provide capital. You provide leadership. You bring back the team, the legacy, the clients." I let that sit for a second, then asked the only question that mattered. "Who runs the show, you?" he said simply, with full authority. 2 days later, I stood in the dim lobby of Allenton Industrial. The logo was still up on the wall, tarnished, faded, but the bones of the company were still there. I walked through every department. Empty desks, unplugged terminals, greasy machine floors with half-covered equipment. It wasn't dead yet, just sleeping. I turned to Charles. "If we do this, we do it right. No cuts for Flash. No more replacing people with process charts. That's why we came to you," he said. "Then let's do it." 6 months after the merger, the new sign went up: Atlas Allenton Solutions, built on experience. It stood just above the newly renovated entryway where clients, suppliers, and employees now walked in daily, not to a relic, but a rebirth. We didn't erase Allenton's past. We honored it. We kept the original blueprints framed in the main hallway. We restored the rusted machinery that had once been deemed non-essential. We rehired every employee who'd been dismissed under Claire's restructuring if they still wanted to come back. Most did. Some didn't, but they referred others. The word was out. Atlas Allenton wasn't just a company, it was a second chance. Charles Bellamy, thinner now, but finely relaxed, joined me at the overlook window above the assembly line. "You know," he said, sipping coffee, "you've done more in 6 months than we managed in 6 years. We just gave people room to do what they're good at," I replied, "and made sure they knew we actually gave a damn." Below us, Thomas ran diagnostics on the latest precision fabrication line. Maya, our youngest hire, was already overseeing client reports, with an ease that made me wonder what she'd be like in 10 years, given the chance to grow, not just be used. Then, one afternoon, I got an email from Claire. Subject line, "No bitterness, just a question." I hesitated, then opened it. "I've started a consulting firm. Industry retention strategies. I'd like to include your story in a case study how you retained not just clients but culture. No spin, no quotes, just the framework. Anonymous if you want." I thought about it for a long time. And then I replied, "You can study what we did, but it only matters if you actually learn from it. Good luck." A year after the day I was fired, I stood in front of our full team, all 137 of them, during our quarterly town hall. We were profitable, we were growing, we were hiring again. And we were whole. "We don't build parts," I told them. "We build systems people rely on. And we build them with hands and experience and pride. That's what no software will ever automate." They clapped. Some nodded. Some just smiled, the quiet kind of smile you give when you finally feel safe to care again. Afterward, as the building emptied out for the weekend, I walked alone down the back hallway, where Linda's photo still sat in a small frame on the office shelf. She used to say, "Value shows in how you show up every day." So that's what I did. Showed up. And stayed standing. Because legacy isn't what you build for yourself. It's what you leave for others to build from.